The O'Keefe report is only about elections. That's not even worth looking at. They all know what they're doing with their stupid voting machines and how easily hackable they are. I'm not getting into any of that. I'll leave that for the communities that want to discuss it. I do not. It's again, I worked on the back end of our country with computers. I know it to the rest of everybody it's all mystical, but they know better. They know what they're doing. So instead, what I will show you, a vehicular ad hoc network. Okay, this is the type of stuff that we talk about here on the channel with the visible light communication and some of these images. VANet, network message. This is your geofencing. Your electric vehicle, if it goes outside your geofence, it turns off. See, they love to show you what's good about it. Oh, look, it saves power. Oh, you can track your car. You can get real-time updates. Yeah, and if you go into any direction that you're not supposed to, then your car will turn off. And this is why I played the Greg Braden clip first. Our youth don't understand any of this. They think this is now normal because we've killed the planet. And no one told them about geoengineering. You're not allowed to talk about it. So they believe we have killed the planet and there's nothing to be done except go live in your 15-minute prison. It's not a prison. It is not a prison to them. They helped build it. They're still helping build it. And they seem very happy with sitting in their bathtub, permanently locked in a 15-minute grid. And that all of this is your 15-minute C40 city structures that your friends and neighbors right now inside of big cities across our country, construction workers, electrical grids, city planners, they're very excited about it. And they'll tell you that it's for urban planning. Geofences with your phone, that's the type of stuff he's discussing. You will not be able to get up and walk around wherever you feel like it. They watch everything. And how are they doing it? Same wireless computer networking through the air molecules, through the human body, through every single bit of the power grid. We've talked about the power grid, which is what we're going to go back to here on InfoWars in a second. But this is what I've been harping on. This is what I've been trying to figure out. Why wouldn't you tell people routing in a VANet, ad hoc based routing is also used between the striker and the drone, possibly relaying through your bone as the W band that I found in cybersecurity in 2022. And this is why I kept begging and yelling at the other people involved. I'm like, you have no right to do this to people and sit there and say nothing. But they did. And then, juxtaposition and others, Sabrina, they're never going to talk about what they're doing. Okay, but this is literally putting people in their open air prison camp by your geofence. And the routing protocols, as you can see here, are biologically inspired. And that's where I got frustrated with the people who, what I call the consciousness peddlers, who do not admit that we track the biofield. They don't admit how we use epigenetics or cymatics, the power of sound, to perturbate human tissue. So they go out there and tell people Mother Nature will have a response. If you just think positive, it'll all go away. You can jump timelines. Meanwhile, we have bio-inspired routing protocols built off of something called biomimetics. And biomimetics allows us to have swarm protocols and ant flocking and all sorts of things that have to do with whales and any type of flight and aggregation. And it's all different. And then they use it under the skin and above, not just with soil strata, but with us, mathematically to push us or to manipulate the golden ratio and all sorts of stuff. Biomimicry and technology is used throughout our systems, not just with robotics and computers, but with better traffic flow and better particulate flow of air molecules in the atmosphere. And instead of discussing any of this, especially given they're using it with DNA swarm technology, which I have in a different paper elsewhere, we're just told, yep, just sit there and get right with God. Just sit there and wait on the politicians. Just wait, just sit, just wait. And I kept explaining, nano exponentiates. You have this nano for 20 years with optogenetic networks. using the new purple lights, which they wouldn't admit to that either. And I'm like, you're using your 15-minute geofences with that you already tested 2 Halloweens ago, with the people that were spinning near their phones. And then people said, well, it didn't happen again, so they're going to save us. And I'm going, they're not building out any engineering here that would turn. None of this is going towards even allowing for the divergence of two different communities, because they have it under the skin and they're not using towers. They're using bodies, which means that anybody who's left hanging around the bodies that are fully graphinated, ready to go, again, they're going to run for these systems. And any of us that say no, we're going to be called nutbags and we're going to end up in trouble. Then there's the people that own houses, and I've been watching the real estate markets with commercial real estate just nosedive for 2.5 years. Which to me, I thought anybody who's a homeowner, anyone who's a prepper, this whole thing with electric vehicles would slow down. No, we are going full whole hog forward, and everybody says, we'll never take our car keys. Do you know how many people out there have tried already to reject electrical vehicles, and they're failing? Because somebody owns the bigger businesses with vehicles and parts. And just like in the food industry setting things on fire, in the car industry, they're destroying entire vehicles, so you cannot just go and get parts. The reason for that is what you're staring at. That's why I didn't change the page. They don't want any vehicles out there that they cannot fully control. And again, with the lack of information or comprehension of our young people to the real climate issues with geoengineering and metamaterials, they're going to do whatever they're told, and they're going to go where the money goes. Now throw in the fact that this is autonomous. AI is driving not only human brains, going all the way back to the military people in 2022 that were emailing me and dying before they deployed the Internet of Behaviors, and then this went fully live, which again, this happened fully live with all their testing. We hear about it with proper backing April 17th. Proper backing meaning a cybersecurity expert people trust and look to. And may God bless him for being honest about it, right? Okay.
I'm going to show you an example of one man who shows you the computer terminal on his smart car where he went, took it in to get it serviced, and then he was given the update that now they may turn his car off or decide where he can go, when he can go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a technocracy, a form of government where a ruling bureaucratic system via government and big tech, through all of these computers that are embedded in every appliance, you name it, control and track where you go and what you do, and it's all integrated into your social credit score. China's about 5 years ahead of the West. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not technology itself that is bad. It's that all the technology, including the smartphone in your pocket, has been deployed to track you, to censor you, to control you. And they're now setting up geofencing systems where they can hit one button and turn off a whole city's cell phones or only select groups' phones where your phone won't work, or it won't shoot video, or it simply turns off when you go into certain areas. They've been testing this for decades, but now it's all rolling out.
Okay, so one of the comments here in the chat about neighbors being a bunch of old ladies that are tortured and they're not making it very well. The NASA documentation, whether you believe it or not, whether you think it's real or not, I can assure you that for 4 years now, which is one of the reasons that I stopped trusting a lot of different areas of discussion, is because of the amount of quote-unquote targeted individuals. They're not targeted individuals. They're people who... Okay. Taking a breath. This is important to my heart because I've lost a lot of people, and I know a lot of us have, that they shouldn't be gone, but they are. And these systems are exactly why. And we're still supposed to sit here and pretend that we're too stupid to understand radiation poisoning. Correct. And other things like the electrical changes inside of our Wiley article on the W band. So, this doesn't come from me. This is from the targeted justice folks. They know exactly and have been testing the systems that you're watching over here with Alex. Okay? The targeted individuals are your canaries in the coal mine to ensure that everything's working great. And it is. And if you do something or think something that they don't want you to, they are going to make you suffer. And that back of the head, see right here, that's very real. It's inside of the computer networking all through the body. And then here's your potential sensor hunter area. And again, it could just be AI. The scalar is going back and forth in all those computer networks that we go over on the channel. And they all know what they're doing. And then everyone hollered at me and said, no, Sabrina, they're clueless. And I'm like, do you know how old these patches are? Hello. This was the one on the front of that guy's book that came out around the same time as Robert Duncan. They all know what they're doing, and now here we're listening to it be explained to us as, well, they've all went and done it. Yeah, in 2009, cybersecurity, there's your feature values for your digital identifier. This would be a good time to revisit that as well. Geomancer, geospatial. And I go in here with human activity recognition radar, and I choose my feature values. What features do I want? Raw coordinates and data sets from prior events or data sets that I'm looking at. Distance to the nearest, number of, length of roads. Are you in your house? Are you at this? Are you near this person? Whatever I want. And anytime anybody selects you for this type of processing, that spell is placed into that spell book database. That way, if they want to run the same spell on you again, the same metrics for your feature values, it's here in the spell book. Backend API, and then a bunch of different databases with something called SQL Hive. This works along with Kubernetes on the back end of things that are as simple as WordPress. These Hadoop Loop puts it all together so that all they have to do is come into the Hive Metastore here, and they have the job trackers, all of this compiling, and here's Kafka, and the Hadoop Loop down here that I'm referring to gets hold of the Microsoft OpenAI Kubernetes containers, and all the work is done for them with AI and machine learning. So when people kept saying, oh, they have a hive mind, yes, they do. It's called SQL Hive. Structured query language has been around a really long time. And this stuff, these different ways that they've got Pig, and they've got more than this with Kubernetes, okay? It's hooked into every single thing they use. Synthetic telepathy, brain to brain, neuron to neuron with companies. We're going to be going there. And that's why this entire time I'm like, why are you letting the nano exponentiate inside of human bodies? You're not talking about anything real with what's going on with how they're using bodies for all of this communication with optogenetics, etc., etc. Well, that's because what I saw when I was young, they're never going to give up these remotes. They're never going to tell people that this is what's been going on since the 80s. No way. Geomancer allows them to define the features. Those are your Digi-ID features in cybersecurity since 2009 and 11. And I'll pull that paper here as well, just for all of us who are cruising along going, yep, Sabrina, we know you're going to go back to the Wiley paper. I have to, folks, because there could be new people here. Looks like a pretty good number. I see there's just a few of you talking. All right, so Digital Forensics and Next Gen Communications 2011. This is your wireless body area network with proper asymmetrical keys for cybersecurity and broadcast. And this is the back end of your feature values for your digital identifiers for your CBDC. Now you will often, and there's your WPAN and your BAN, which have been around since 1995. That's why here on the channel, my approach to this is very different than a lot of people who came before me. I showed my piloerection. I said, the human biofield is a body part. You have got to tell people. Nope. We're going to argue about viruses. We're going to argue about whether it's a particle or a wave. We're going to have fake fights between Yetis, who are doctors, who will lie like Malfoy did and tell the good old men out there, just sit, just wait, and count rice, basically, every time a spell is being cast on you. And I was horrified because these spells in the Geomancer with Geospatial spell book are biosensor polling. The same thing that we watch over here with WBAN Omnet, which could be as simple as a drone going over your home and pulling your biosensors for who knows what. It could be an insurance company. It could be something with FEMA, the drone implementation of Internet of Things in 2021, and the UAV-based wireless body area network for healthcare applications. The 5 sensors they can pull: heart rate, temperature, motion, oxygen, and blood pressure. And we've been over and over human activity recognition radar. I'm looking to see if I left it open over here because I closed up a bunch of stuff trying to explain other stuff. And all of it goes together with the remote sensing for all the different multitasking of your human activity using the microdoppler, all compiled for them on their phones. A radar-based human activity recognition using 802.15.5 and Friends, which is your wireless sensor networks, a 3D point cloud classifier, which the Synergists will recognize with the MIMO scattering, where they are looking through your house and watching you walk through your house, and no one would admit that it's a behavior of human body segments in the presence of low frequency, again, electromagnetic fields. And every time I tried to get folks to talk about it, because it's the human biofield, the brain's turned off. Now that's religious. And I'm like, tanks and planes don't have ankles and arms and waists here. That's why when you hear me make the joke about the Abrams tank looking for its brassiere, or the F-35 is shopping for furniture, I said, y'all, these are channel models with computer networking for going through the human body at specific rates of your tissue, as in the thickness and density of your tissue and your bodily fluids. So this gambit of nobody knows and everyone's stupid, while that was going on, I continued to push through. Here's 2022. A radar-based human activity recognition using this novel 3D stuff, video-based, sensor-based, radar-based, radio frequency, smartphone, wearable, environmental, and this is all for help, I've fallen and I can't get up. Wearable sensor data sets. Wearable devices have data sets that they can go back and check. Then there's medical activity. Well, that's right. And all those things are going to end up logged one way or another inside of that spellbook database accessible stuff. And then it starts reading through, what have you done before? What are you going to do now? To me, to someone like me, this all makes complete easy sense of how they're going through it. And then everybody says, well, how do I turn it off? And how do I cleanse the biosensors? And I said, you can't. It is command and control. It's been around for a long time. That's why I was so upset when I realized this wasn't about me. This was the whole world. And I'm like, oh, you're going back to zero trust like you had in the 50s. That's a problem because that's machine to machine with mesh networks covering bodies, with molecular communication at the single molecule level, and they're neuronally recording your brain. They have access to the databases. You don't. And your friends who think they're going to biohack and we're going to hack, no, you don't. The machine-to-machine encryption has got you. And we're cypherpunks. Yeah, I know. Peer-to-peer, which is where your AI internal networking comes in. So anyways, excuse me a moment. Overview of targeted individual program. Your fusion centers in black down here, that is your signature reduction force. Nobody wanted to talk about this either. I said they're not gang stalkers. They have jobs. Signature reduction force jobs are the secret undercover army of your military who's watching you with their phones when you go to the grocery store. The largest undercover force in the world. This is old. It's May 2021. There's a bunch of them. I'm like, y'all, they're not gang stalkers. They have jobs. They work with the fusion centers. All the things your local police also don't like to talk about or admit to. They're the police. Oh, I don't know. Electrical. What? No. That's because they have control. They have their own remotes, fusion center related. That is then something most people have heard of called Stingray and Dirtbox. So, in other words, people thought they were on a terrorist database. The 702 people in Congress totally lied every time. Oh, we don't really look over here or look over there. They watch everybody. So instead of anybody telling the truth about their own little cell phone systems, they kept bullshitting people, red stringing them along, lying about how the system works. And eventually what happens is Kathy O'Brien, Jesse Czebotar, going all the way back to the church hearings in the 70s. They wear you out. Then you die. And you're done. And nobody has any idea you ever said a word. And they go right back to doing what they're doing. And it looks like it's like a 30-year turnover of media bullshitting and whatever. Then they rewrite history. And nobody has any idea what really went on. So for someone like me, who took notes when I was a child, my notes didn't change. And so when I figured a bunch of this out by going to the post office, I'm like, uh-oh. Because not only did it not change from when I was younger, now we've got a whole big plan with molecular communication, growing molecules inside of humans with nano networks that talk to the Yetis that you don't even know about. And the same doctors, after 5 years, are still lying to everybody, telling them, yeah, AI has all the answers. Then why won't you tell anybody about your systems? Human radar. No doubt in my mind, it has to do with cybersecurity and who's able to change those features, load those features into a piece of modeling software, and then fire the signals based on the databases. Okay? All of them, one way or another. And that's going to depend on what cybersecurity they have. And then they hit boop, and then the changes are made. And over and over and over, everyone yelled at me and said, you're too negative. You can't tell people this. Oh, woe is us. And I'm like, this is what has been killing me on and off for like 10 years. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. If my family spoke aloud, the things they would tell you. And all they want is their mom. 10 years. You should, and that's why I mentioned with Danger Zone's comment, the people that we've lost, it's just massive. That's without mentioning the turbo cancer in our animals and the fact that we can't grow proper things in our soil, and everyone's talking around the core of the issue. They're not going to give up these remotes. This is the global information grid. This is the world sentient simulation of sensors everywhere. And they're accessible to all these people who are in these jobs, and they know. They're all over the GitHub. They know. Nobody's going to tell them no. They're just going to keep going to work. And that's where we still are, in my opinion. Only now we have AI literally controlling people's skin. They want it that way. That's the human augmentation component that that I've been digging into a piece at a time, because it's terrifying for most people to realize that your governments did this on purpose. The novel vaccine was to force it so that you couldn't say no, because they had no intention of anybody being able to make their own decision. If you got threatened with a novel threat, well, then we're going to augment you. Yeah. Graphene healthcare, here we come. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, here in the States, we have human-machine interface with our Department of Defense, integrated network of systems, and cyber-physical backbones. And we're not even allowed to talk about any of it, because everybody wants to believe that the same people who built all of this with the IEC, ISO, ITU, etc., that somehow they're going to turn it all off, because now we're all mad enough at the IEEE since 1995. IEEE HAWG, Human Augmentation Working Group. Do you see it down here? Let me zoom in for you. And it's always for the paraplegics, and it's a haptic walk guide simulator, sorry. But it is a form of human augmentation. So I have to come in here to, yeah, the webinar version to pull apart because there's HVFE, Human Factors for Visual Experiences Working Group. Hang on. And I know that Rumble Dad has some of these. Brain machine interfaces, digital hardware enhancement, ubiquitous and continual monitoring, ambient intelligence and biohacking. And the reason for getting into all this is that other. Now, where am I at? The other paper. Yeah. Enhanced intelligence, sensing, mobility, and strength, increased appearance, disease free, longevity, ecosystem, and ubiquitous and continuous human machine interaction. That is correct. And this is what I mean. I've already been in here. This image is from 2000.